Hello and welcome to the track builder here in Wings. Today we're going to have a look at how we can move around the editor and how we can use all the different functions to create our own race tracks. We'll start off by being able to move around the scene, so we can right click and move the mouse, and you'll see we orbit and look around. You're going to see our scene. Now while you are with the right click held down, the W, S, A and D keys will let you move forward, back, left and right. Also, Q will let you drop down and E will raise you up. And so this way you can look all around your scene. Now we also have the option where you can scroll the wheel and that will move you forward, and scroll it backwards to move you backwards. And if you click your mouse wheel, it will allow you to pan the scene left and right. So you're not actually looking left and right, you're just moving the camera left and right. And using these in conjunction with each other will allow you to see around the world. Now to place an object, we have our objects category down here. We have different objects. We have decorative objects and we have gates and pylons and things like that. We'll start off by placing a gate, just by clicking on it, and we can place it in the scene. You'll see it comes with an arrow which gives you the direction that the player is to fly through it, which you can press I if you want to invert the direction of this arrow, and you'll see us using this a bit later. Now as we move this around, you'll see we can actually hold right click and move around. Same move tools we had, so you can move while you have the placement tool activated. Now while we are in this placement tool, you'll see we'll automatically snap to the angle of the terrain, but also if we put it onto buildings. So in this case we can actually put it on top of a building and it's snapping to the angle. If we want to rotate this around, you hold Control on your keyboard and scroll the mouse wheel, and you'll see we're able to rotate it around. Now let's say I want to place it on top of this building. Can I get the rotation about right? If I press and toggle between N and M on the keyboard, we go from matching the normal of the slope, which means it's on the angle. I press M and you'll see it now snaps to being vertical. There are times when you'll want to keep things vertical or to keep their current orientation. Well, there are times when you do want to press N and have it snap to the terrain, and that's up to you and how you want to build your tracks. But in this case, we're going to put one on the roof to make this will be the start gate for us. So we want to place some more gates. We can easily just click and place a few. Right click cancels the tool, or you can press escape to cancel the tool as well. If we want to delete some objects, we just hit the delete key, and we can select the objects and delete them individually, or we can select them over here in the inspector and delete from there. Now I'm going to build a bit of a track. I think we'll get a pylon, and we will place the pylon over, I think, by here, and we're going to rotate this around. We're going to go around the other way. So this big section here, this big rectangular section you see, is the area that the player has to fly through for the gate to activate. I'm just going to press escape to cancel my tool. So if I go to move tool, I'm able to move this around individually, and we're going to press I to invert the gate direction because it's going the wrong way for us. And I can actually make this wider if I need to. So we're going to grab the size here and scale this up, and that makes it a bit easier for newer pilots. Maybe we can make it higher or wider depending on the difficulty of the track you're trying to make. If I press Control D, I will duplicate that pylon. I'll move one over here and put it around the back of these trees. But I'm going to now rotate it. So I can press E on the keyboard. So W is the move tool and E is the rotate tool. Let me just rotate this around. And you'll see that this is a bit too far. We're going to make it match up with this big tree. I think it'll be a bit nicer to have that as a bit of a natural gate for people to get around. So we're working our way back over to the start of the track. We can see how we're going. I'm going to fly down here. I think a good way to get back through here will be with an Immelman gate. So we can place one of those around here. And we're going to rotate this around. Same way, Control and scroll wheel. I think placing it about here will be a good spot. Once again, right click just to cancel the tool. Now we can see here that the race line is kind of cutting through these trees. So this race line, just a quick note about it, this is going to be placing the cones on the ground So as you're flying, you have some orange cones to know where you're going. Also, you can turn the race line on while you're flying. I'm sure you've seen that. So it doesn't actually impact the space that the pilot can travel, because you can cut the gaps a bit closer. So it is just a guide for the players. Now, we don't want the guide for the players going through the buildings, so we can actually place a dummy object. This is going to allow us to control the shape of the racetrack a little bit. But you'll see now the dummy object is kind of warping the wrong part of the track. We can actually reorder our gates over here in the inspector. So I'm going to put it before the Immelmann, and there we go. We have our dummy object causing a nice smooth line through to the Immelmann. Now we can place other assets in the game. So for example, I want to place this large tent. I think this might look nice. Now we can make it decorative and have it just off to the side, or we can use this as a gate. You'll notice this doesn't actually have any invisible gate inside it, but we can fix that. So I'm going to place it about here. I think that's a good spot for it. Right click, cancel the tool. And the invisible gate is an object that we can place. Now the invisible gate can be scaled the same way we did the pylons. So I'm just going to rotate it around so it matches. We're going to place it. And then over here, I can adjust the size just by clicking and dragging. And this way I can drag left and right to increase the size, or you can go left and right or left to reduce it. And this works with all the other values as well. So my rotation, so I can rotate and everything by hand this way by clicking and dragging, or I can type a number in if I want it, a certain number. I can type that in. That's going to be fine as well. So I think that's going to look good. But once again, we have the same problem with the dummy object, and I'm just going to slide this up before the dummy object, and you see the gate update, the track update in real time for us. So we have a nice simple track happening here. We might want to place some other assets. We can place some flags down. We have a whole selection of flags as well. And I think just because this will be near the start, we're going to get a few flags. I reckon 6 flags will be a nice starting run for us. Now, if I go grab the move tool, you'll see I can control select, and we select multiple objects. If I go to rotate them, we have 3 options in the rotate tool. So we have pivot on selected, pivot on center, and individual. Now to give you an idea of what they do, pivot on selected will actually rotate all of them around the first one you selected. So that can be quite handy if you're moving everything in a group. Now the pivot on center will actually pivot on a center point from all your selection. So in this case, if I rotate, they all rotate around a center point. In this case, I might funnel it out a bit, so that way they're not in line with the track. They're kind of funneling you into the gate. They're not kind of straight up and down. And then we have individual. This individual will actually rotate each flag or each object on its own axis. So in this case, I'll rotate it around, so as you're flying in, it all says FPV the right way for you. And so that looks great. What I'm going to do is now we're going to Control D to duplicate them. And this is where that rotate will come in handy. So I can actually rotate these that way. So we get those in spot nice and easy. Now, one of the other things as well is sometimes as you're moving around, the ground isn't perfectly flat in our large environment. I'm going to duplicate these again just so we can check out this hill over on the side. So rather than updating each one individually and moving it up and down to match the terrain, we can actually press this drop items button. So whether they're just below the terrain or whether they're just above the terrain, with them selected, the drop items button will snap them all to your terrain or buildings as well. And so this way everything looks a bit more realistic as it matches. But I'm just going to delete these out of the way. Over here we have all our props and also our gates in the inspector. I just had this minimized. Alright, now another thing we can do is we can place assets that have gates, and we can just use them as decorations. So for example, we have the excavator. Let's say we want to put the excavator here, which I think looks okay, but we don't want that for the track. We can actually turn off this invisible gate over here with a little tick box. You'll see it automatically changes it from being in the gate list to being in the props list. With the tick box, we can always bring it back if we so desire. But in this case, we'll just move it off to the side. This way we can add some decorations to our track. We have quite a selection. Like the brick wall is an example of something that's similar to the invisible gate, that we can actually scale this up. And let me just select it. And you'll see I can scale this up and build some buildings of my own, and little gaps and stuff for it. So we have quite a selection of assets, and this list is going to increase over time. We also have an option over here, which is world space and local space. So I just want to clear this up in case you were playing with it and not quite sure what's going on. So in the move tool, it also works with the rotate tool as well, but the move makes it a bit easier for us to see. Right now it is set to local space, which means the angle of this XYZ gizmo is actually matching the object itself. So I can move it up and down this the slope here on this shed, because I'm in local space, very easily. Also, if I move it up and down, it moves up and down on top of itself, which means if I want to stack objects that are angled, it's super easy. However, if I go to world space, you'll see that up and down is now the world up and down. And so moving it up and down, it's going to be a lot more challenging if I'm trying to stack them on top of each other. But this is also very handy if you are wanting to work in the world coordinates. So we can leave that to local space for now. So that's how we can set up a track. But we're missing the most important part of the track, is actually where the pilots are going to be standing. So you know where you launch from when you're playing the game. So we place this pilot area object, and you'll see it automatically picks 16 pilots. This is because we can have 16-player multiplayer. I'm going to control right scroll wheel, and we can place it anywhere we like. I think about here in front of this fence would be nice. And we want to think about where the pilot's going to be standing, so we don't want to be putting them in a really rough position. As we start off, we're always going to be pilot number 1, but as you play multiplayer, the other spots are going to be filled. So I think here's a good spot to place it. So now with everything placed, we have our track. All our arrows are going in the right direction. We can actually test fly and validate our track. Before we do, I recommend always saving it, just in case. So we're going to save the track. I'm calling this a demo test track. And we're going to save that. So we test, fly, and validate. And this will drop us right into the game. And you can change your aircraft here the same way you're playing the regular game, but we're going to start with just the reflex. And see how we go. So launch straight up. And let's see if I don't make a fool of myself while I'm doing this. Line up, get under this tent, it's nice and low. Don't worry about the excavator. Gentlemen, up and over. And we want to complete the lap. So we only need to do one lap, but you can do as many laps as you like. But once you've done one lap, you'll notice in the top corner, it does say that it is now verified. So we can press escape, and we can return to the track builder. Now it's saying that the track is tested and validated. Yes to publish, no to keep editing. If we are wanting to keep working on the track, hit no. Otherwise hit yes and publish. Once it is published, we are unable to actually edit the track any longer. If you do want to update it, you'll have to give it a new name. This way, it makes sure that only validated tracks are updated. And so if you create a track that you can't complete, it won't be validated. I'm just going to go no, because I'm going to show you one more tool that we can place, and that is the measurement tool. So that is up here, the tape measure. So we can actually place this either on the ground, so we can measure stuff out, in case you're trying to set up the track to work with a real track you might be designing in the real world. Or we can actually use this between gates. So I can click with the tool selected, click on our start gate, click on our Ullman gate, and you'll see that it is 87.2 meters. Right click once again to cancel the tool. This is really handy if you're designing a track for the real world. You might find 82 meters is a bit too difficult. That's fine. We can pull this back and say you might find 100 meters a bit more reasonable for the pilots, depending on the skill level of the event you're trying to set up. And so that's it. So I'm going to upload this. We're going to save this again. And then I'm going to test fly it and upload it. And so that way you guys can enjoy this out there in the world. I really look forward to seeing the tracks you guys come up with. And good luck. Happy flying. Bye.